problem is not the cars. It's not the EVs. The problem is the company. After hiring an electric car from Thrifty and hearing, Thrifty come up with all these reasons they say that customers don't want electric cars, that Tesla EVs were a nightmare for the company, and that they had to just go and sell them all. I have some reasons why I think that is bullshit. Why I think that actually there are some real problems in Thrifty, and that the problem is not the EV, but Thrifty as a business itself.
On a scale of 1 to 10, I give last night's experience a -10.
Oh, God, that's pretty bad.
I'm still mad about it.
Where Kathy, my lovely bride, and I, last night, we flew into Regional Southwest Airport and we rented a car. And originally, this is the car we rented, but originally we just wanted to get a really cheap gas car and just, drive it. But they said they were completely out of gas cars and all they had were EVs. Now, I don't know if that was a bait and switch, but last night was not smooth. We did not have a good time renting this car. The car itself is not bad, but man, oh man, do these rental car companies have something to learn about educating the public about how to actually drive and charge an EV.
I'm really curious to know if the CEO at Thrifty actually hired one of his own cars, and I highly doubt he did. Here's my experience, guys. I hired a Polestar 2, which by the way was quite a very nice car. I hired a Polestar 2 through Thrifty in Melbourne when I was at the Melbourne Electric Car Show on the weekend. So I had it for 3 days. Here's why I think Thrifty are possibly even lying about what's really going on. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. It's great to see you. And great to have you with us, guys. Big shout out to our Patreon supporters and YouTube members. And by the way, if you weren't aware of this, YouTube members, you do get access to some extra videos that are not available to the normal channel. Plus, it obviously helps support the channel. So I want to thank you, our YouTube members and our Patreon supporters. Thrifty. Okay, guys, I hired the vehicle. Thrifty said on the website it was going to cost me what was a really good deal. $215 in total. Australian dollars for 3 days of hiring the vehicle, right? I thought, wow, this is fantastic. I just got my bill. Here's what my bill was. $296 plus an additional $21.60. I'm going to explain to you what the $21 was. Well, first of all, the extra charge of $21.60 was for them having to charge the EV when I delivered it. Now, when you hire a Thrifty vehicle, they don't tell you this until you arrive to pick it up. Right? You arrive to pick it up and they say, you need to charge this vehicle to 90%. Now, first of all, Thrifty really probably shouldn't be telling you to charge their vehicles to 90% because actually Polestar and Tesla, the vehicles, the EVs that Thrifty hire out, you're only meant to charge those to 80% on a regular basis. Now, you can charge them higher, but Polestar and Tesla don't recommend you do. However, you have to bring it back with a 90% state of charge. That's very difficult to do. You've got to be able to find, basically, if you've got to drive a fair way to get to Thrifty to return your hire car, which I had to do, by the time you get there from your house or your hotel or wherever you're staying, you're not going to be at anywhere near 90% charge, right? Nowhere near. So you've got to find a fast charging location on your way to the airport, which is generally where people would get a hire car from. Huge numbers of people get hire cars from the airport to Thrifty, massive numbers, or wherever your dealership is to return your vehicle. You've got to find a charging location very, very close to that. You've got to charge the vehicle to probably, 95%? Because then you've got to take it back to Thrifty with a 90% state of charge. Now, charging your vehicle to 95% takes a long time. That's why no one does it. It's stupid to do that, right? Basically, every single charge, guys, I've done so many videos, so many PR releases I've seen from car companies say, here's the charging speed from 10 to 80%. So the fastest charging EV in the world, which is now the Zeekr 007, it can charge around 600 kilowatt, meaning you can charge the battery from 10% to 80% in 10.5 minutes. But if you want to charge from 80% to 95%, well, it's a very, very slow in every EV. So that's why no one does it, right? If you're going on a road trip, you don't charge to 95%, you just charge to 80% because The tapering off curve is crazy. In other words, you can't bring your car back to Thrifty, really. It's really unlikely you'd even be able to return it at a 90% state of charge. Now, Thrifty know this. They just want to slug you with an extra bill. But for me personally, I wanted to do the right thing. I mean, I wanted to return the car at a 90% state of charge, but I actually couldn't. It wasn't even possible. So Thrifty just made this difficult for no reason. If they had have said 80%, I could have done that, right? But 90%, yeah. That means I would have had to find somewhere close by, which didn't exist, where I could charge it to 95%. That would have taken ages. I would have been sitting in a charger probably for about an hour, waiting for it to charge at 4 o'clock in the morning because my flight was at 6:40 a.m. That was just insane. So that's the first reason. I honestly think Thrifty know this, and they are trying to make it just maybe putting themselves in a position to charge you extra for whatever reason. Now next, Thrifty, when they hire a new EV, these vehicles are new. Most people have never used one before. Thrifty have said that. That's the whole point. Get people in a new car. They tell you nothing about it. They don't say, oh, here's your charging cable. It's in the boot. It's under the back tray here. They tell you nothing. They just send you off. They're like, here's the keys. Piss off you go. Basically, they just don't give you a second thought. What I'm saying is, Thrifty, surely they could spend 30 seconds with you to say, all right, guys, there's your charging cable. You plug it in like that. If you want to, you can charge it at home using an electric cable, a normal cable. Now, here's your second charging cable. That's for fast charging. Something along those lines. They are not interested at all in any kind of customer service whatsoever. And when I say not at all, I mean not at all. When I returned the vehicle, right, I drove in to the car park at 5 o'clock in the morning. There was no one there, even though it's Melbourne Airport, one of the busiest airports in the world. No one was there at the place. So I had to find a after hours return box, which was very confusing to find. The arrows were all pointing in the wrong direction. I had to go back to where I was at the start, and the arrows were telling me go that way, go that way, go that way. Anyway, I had to go all the way back to the car, and then I ended up finding it, right? I found the lockbox to put the keys in. Thrifty called me, right? When did they call me? They called me at 9:45 p.m. that night, right? 9:45 p.m. So literally after I'd returned it, they called me about 16 or 17 hours after I returned it. And they said to me, where's the car? Where is it? Why haven't you returned the car yet? And I say, hey, guys, I told you that I would be arriving at 5 a.m. And basically I had to find your lockbox, and I put the keys in your lockbox. Anyway, then they say to me, well, we can't find it. And I said, it's in your car park. It's in the spot that I'm meant to return it. It says Thrifty on there. Sure enough, eventually I get a bill, and the rest is history. They did find it, and the keys were there. They hadn't even looked in the lockbox for some reason. So they'd had all day to charge this thing, right? 5 a.m. is when I returned it. They'd had all day, and it wasn't until 9:45 p.m. that they even looked for it. In other words, these guys are not organized, and Thrifty doesn't really want to hire this car out because they're thinking to themselves, all right, our employees are not going to charge it. Someone returns it in the morning. Our employees are not going to charge the thing. So when can we rent it out again? So that car is out of action now for an entire day because, well, they're not on the ball. They're not ready to charge it. So Thrifty CEO probably doesn't know all this stuff. He's probably thinking to himself, man, we're not getting basically we're not getting many people hiring these things, but probably because they're out of action, right? They're out of action more than a petrol-powered or gas-powered car because their staff are like, oh yeah, we'll charge it whenever, we'll look for the car whenever, we'll charge it tomorrow, it doesn't matter. And then what that means is they can't rent it out that day. They can't get an extra booking. They basically have to have a huge gap in between every booking. Add to all that, Thrifty service is terrible. Guys, I've looked at my bill and I cannot understand it. You've got to know algebra. And when I say algebra, it's not in dollars. The stuff is not dollars. It's got like B's and Z's for dollar figures, and none of it makes any sense from Thrifty. I don't think that even a mathematician could work out Thrifty's bill because it's totally nonsensical. It's crazy, this stuff, that how they can think that as a customer, you can work out what the bill means. You can't. Now, it wouldn't matter if they hadn't charged me so much more than what I actually was meant to pay. Like I said, I was meant to pay $210, but they've charged me $296 plus an additional $21.50 for them to put some extra charge into the vehicle after I return it. In other words, I paid basically $320 for a vehicle that's meant to cost me $210, or $110 more than what Thrifty said they were going to charge me. Now, it may be true that some customers are not hiring EVs from Thrifty. It also may be true that Thrifty sucks and they are the biggest part of the problem. That was my experience. Now, my experience driving the Polestar 2, it was a great car. I loved it. My brother drove it. He loved it. Don't tell Thrifty that, but my brother drove it. He loved it. I drove it. I loved it. My brother's son thought it was amazing. He thought it was a spaceship. He thought it was so fast. He was just blown away. It's a really good car. The problem is not the car. The problem is the company.